Yeah, so my name is Markus Glaser. I am the co-founder and co-owner of Hallo Welt. My main task here, main job here is to care about everything that's tech related. So that's mostly implementation stuff for the product, it's operations for running our cloud, but also, and that leads the way here, I'm responsible for tech compliance and for making sure that we comply with the regulations and we deliver a good service to our customer. Now, that exactly is the goal of IT service management. This task here, this talk here is set to explore the possibilities of using a wiki in the context of IT service management. I'm going to show you a few approaches and a few ways of how we can do that. As a little bit of a spoiler already, you can see that I subtitled the talk on target with a mix of methods. So I think ITSM, and we will see that, is so huge. It's not a there's not a one size fits all solution for it, at least not if you want to use the power of a software. But it will probably be a combination of a few specialized tools that really specialize on their strong parts. Wiki obviously is very strong in knowledge management, but there are other tools, it will probably be a mix of methods. We want to see how Wiki fits into this play. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about ITSM, and then we're going to highlight a few example cases on how we can use the wiki in the context of IT service management. And of course, in the end, I'm going to take a few questions. So feel free to either use the chat or directly ask later in the QA section. Okay, so what's ITSM? ITSM, or IT Information Technology Service Management, basically refers to like all the measures and the methods that we need to take to support business processes of an organization by the IT. So basically, that is, if you think in back like a few years, I mean, ITSM has been around quite a while, but it poses a shift in paradigm from IT information technology as being some like self-purpose thing. Hey, it's so cool, we can build a fractal Mandelbrot set in 45 different colors in less than 3 minutes. So that's like IT guys love this kind of algorithmic stuff. But then IT realized that it's not a self-purpose, but it serves a purpose, and it basically other people rely on IT running, on the services running. So ITSM basically acknowledges the fact that IT serves a purpose, and we also need to be there. We need to be reliable in a way that customers and company internal processes can rely on that, and it's really like a supportive technology. So that is basically the idea behind ITSM. We people running IT acknowledge that there are other people that need the IT for some purposes, and we need to make good providing it service. Of course, first and foremost, that service should be provided to customers. That's outward facing, and of course every company needs to satisfy their customers and wants to do it, and that's the purpose and the source of why a company is there. But also in order to fulfill that customer areas, an organization needs to make sure that the internal processes that rely on IT also run smoothly. So ITSM is also facing is also inwards facing and only outbound. Yes. So how do we do that? Of course, it's not necessary that every organization starts rethinking from scratch. How can we do it? There have been quite a few frameworks and best practices. And there is even like a standard. That's the ISO 20000 standard. So that defines a minimum of what you need to do to provide IT service management. But the de facto standard is ITIL, and that defines a set of practices which we can follow. And if we follow those practices, we can make sure that we deliver good service of our IT. If we want to take a quick look at the practices, then you see, so that's ITIL version 4, ITIL v4 practices. It has shifted from processes to practices. That, like ITIL 3 is processes, ITIL 4 is practices. That's because processes are not so good when it comes to agile methodologies, or practices sounds better and can cope with agile better. But if you look at this, then you can see that it's 34 practices. Let's take a look. So we need to manage our strategy. We need to manage architecture. We want to continuously improve our service. We need to manage risk. Information security needs to be managed. Knowledge needs to be managed. Suppliers. We need a service desk, a central point of contact, a single point of contact, sorry. We need incident management. We need release management, change management, asset management, deployment management, etc., etc., etc. Each of those practices is big enough to fill a week of thinking about, right? So when I was tasked with, hey, can you talk about ITSM and the wiki? I found this is really an interesting task, and we can make a seminar doing this. So instead of iterating through each of those practices, and I guess you all agree that is not like a very fun part, I decided to pick a few and focus on the mechanisms behind them. Obviously, the wiki is good at knowledge management, so we can check how that works. We are good at writing handbooks, so let's talk about information security management. We can do catalogs, so let's do supplier management, and let's look at an incident management and why that may be useful. Again, what I have said before is, and I will probably say it again, I'm not proclaiming here that the wiki is the one-size-fits-all solution. I think if you look at the vast range of stuff here, there is probably not a single software that can cover all of this and be good in every aspect. So of course there's ITIL software around there, and there's software that strives to cover a lot of this. But if you want to play your strength as a software, then probably you need a set of a few of those. What I think is a very good combination is having a wiki for knowledge base, and then have some sort of ticket or project management software, like the software of our partner Easy Redline, for the single point of contact, service desk, and for all these like task-based topics that are also part of the ITIL practices. Okay, so let's go through a few use cases. Obviously, a wiki is a good knowledge database. That is what wikis are made for. They are encyclopedic. They can you can write down a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights about a specific topic. What you also can see is, wiki inherently doesn't like the spread of information. So just by having, for example, an article name like coffee maker ensures that all the information about a coffee maker goes to that particular article, so it's all collected in one place. We know how to make things more beautiful. I can get you a live example of this. So here, that's the coffee maker. So you can describe the product. We can, of course, edit, so we can improve that article. We have multi-modality in here. And what I also think is a part of what knowledge management is about continuous improvement. So that's why I put it also under the label continuous improvement. Although I know that technically speaking, the continuous improvement of ITIL is more meant to be a process, but I think the knowledge part of your management systems is the one where improvement actually happens. So it's you set down a piece of knowledge, you write it down, and then somebody comes and says, "Hey, I don't think that's still correct. Hey, here's an improvement. How can we improve that?" And so that continuous inflow of new knowledge and new aspects of a certain portion of knowledge, that's something a wiki is very good at. So you can either do it by just editing the content, of course, but you can also use discussions here and maybe just suggest an improvement instead of postulating. Okay, so that's the knowledge management part. I'm rushing a little bit over this because I guess anyone who has thought about wikis has thought about the knowledge management aspect. Let's just talk about which technologies did we just see. So we saw a gallery, an image gallery. We saw droplets, which are like small bricks of text, if you want to put it that way, small containers you can use and reuse, like the message box. And of course, we saw a discussion at the end of the article. So let's go one step further and see how, for example, policies and processes can be part of a wiki. In BlueSpice, what we have is we have a thing called manuals or handbooks. So what you can do is you can organize your articles in a set of in a book-like order, in a sequential order of topics, and it's also hierarchical. So one application of this is you can take your framework like ITIL, or here in this case it's C5, and that is C5 is a cloud framework by a German ministry. And then you just go through it and say, okay, what are the requirements of this framework, of the C5 framework in my case? And for each requirement, I put one chapter, and then I can just describe how do I fulfill these chapters. So that's classical approach in ISO certifications, ISO 27001, 9001, also C5, also ITIL. You can just go through it and make sure that every aspect that is required to be covered is also covered in your documentation. The way it works in BlueSpice is you can also have your pages reviewed and have draft and published states of your pages. So if you want to say, okay, here's the process, and somebody wants to change the process, they can say, okay, they can make suggestions. Anyone can make suggestions, but you have to have some, say, technical advisor, some process owner approve the change before it actually is a valid change. And to that end, we use a thing called controlled documents. So as you can see here, this is still something like a wiki article, but it has some sort of metadata in here. So, for example, a document ID or some status, or a scope. You could tell people who is the process owner, who approved this, if it's approved, how long is this valid, things like that. So it's all more about formal documentation. And you can actually then query this formal documentation and say, give me a state of where I am, for example. So, I mean, we're talking about management systems. So one of the important things is we need to be able to audit this. We need to be able to know how much of the requirements are already implemented. Is this outdated? Do we need to do something about it? So to that end, we can create audit reports by just querying these documents and saying, okay, give me like all the documents that are relevant here in this context, and give me the current status about the document. So this is one example I actually took from our own implementation of information security management. Of course, everything's fully implemented, as you can see here, with a few noted exceptions. Yeah, and here's one thing I really like about the wiki, and you can see it if you look closely. So this, I call this the internal audit state. So in our standard, where are we? Sorry. So in our standard templates for control of documents, we don't have internal audit states. We just have an audit state, and something that that is to be fulfilled by, say, to be filled in by an audit. Now, I wanted to have a pre-check, and I thought, how can I do this? And the solution here in the wiki is fairly simple. It's rather easy to add some additional metadata information. So basically, by just taking the pattern of this this template and basically copy pasting it over. And then I was able to really quickly create new metadata entries for internal audit comments, for internal audit state, which is like an additional state to the official status here. I could also very simply query this using a semantic query, which is a query language we can use in the wiki. And then I said, give me a report, give me an audit report of this aspect of the internal audit state. And that's what I got here. That part is, in my view, is crucial to also the question, how good can we fulfill the requirements of IT service management or any other requirement framework, because most of these frameworks are designed in a way that you need to adopt them to your company's, to your organization's needs. So intentionally, they don't give you a blueprint where it says, okay, you use these 3 form fields and then you're done, because every organization is individual. And most of these standards acknowledge that and say, okay, if you should have X, Y, and Z as a minimum standard, but you may have to add additional features, and you may have to leave out some sort of metadata, and you're still compliant. So you can adjust that to your needs in the wiki. Okay, so what technologies did we use in the wiki? We used the book functionality. We used templates, template IMS documents, which you can also get from Hallo Welt and import into your wiki. If you are interested more into like how to do an integrated management system in the wiki, there's also a talk held by a dear colleague of mine, by Margit Rodriguez, and you can also watch that, and she gives more technical explanation on how to do it. Okay, another aspect. So we have knowledge management, we have policies and processes description. Now, another aspect we see in IT service management is we need lists, we need overviews. For example, we want to see all our assets, all our services, all our suppliers, whatever, all incidents, you name it. So, and why do we need that? Because we need we need a list of, say, all suppliers, and then we need to know, do they all fulfill a certain criteria, which we may require, for example. So here's one example that is taken from, again, our internal system. So that's a lightweight supplier management. And what we can do here is, again, you see we have these metadata fields and we have also free text. So the metadata here is flexible and adjustable, and we can add additional requirements. So currently, what we focus most on is what's the data processing legal framework, but we may also focus in the future on other things like NIS2 compliancy and stuff like that. So what we can do is we can add these metadata fields, and then I can say, give me all the suppliers where we do not have a data processing agreement, for example. And then I can go through that and see and review that and see if we need to take action here or if we just keep it because we're fine with it. One important aspect of this in my experience is that in addition to this structured part, there's also a free text part here. And that's very important because sometimes you have to, for example, you have to make a decision. So one example we had is we were working with a supplier that was based in the UK. So you may know that UK left the European Union, and by that also fell out of the GDPR legal framework as such. So the question was, how do they still comply? Do we have to take extra measures? How can we cope with that? And it took me quite a bit of research to figure out that there is an adequacy decision which holds for the time being, and when do we need to revise that again, and what is covered by the adequacy decision. So I could actually add that in the free text here. So I was like, okay, we are okay with the data processing legal framework, but I could add additional details here in the wiki, and that is a thing that I personally find very important. Here you can see what it looks like. So this obviously is a form field. You can actually edit the forms here. And you can also have these kind of overview pages again. So this is somewhat similar to the audit state I gave you before for the service management, for the security management. But here it is more like a working list. So for me, as being responsible for IT, I can, on a regular basis, I can go to these pages, I can take a look, I can see which providers do I have to talk with, or do I have to assess or reassess. I do a similar thing for contracts, so I know which contracts do we have to maybe renegotiate, or do we have to cancel, or do we have to prolong, or whatever, continue. One very nice detail here is you can also add things like this input box, which is an element of the wiki, where I can easily set up a new provider. So basically, an input box allows me to make pages, to create new pages with certain parameters. So in this case, the page is created and it uses a template with that metadata, or it follows a certain naming pattern. So we have all the providers being a subpage of the provider page, for example. And that is something you can do using these input boxes and make it very easy for your editors to work with the wiki, because a standard editor in the wiki doesn't want to really think a lot about the underlying technologies, but they want to use it as a tool. So wiki also gives you a lot of functionality to make it easy to create such pages and to put them into the right place in the structure. So what technologies do we use here? Input box, as I just said, this catalog thing uses subpages, so that's a pattern we use. We use semantic attributes for metadata and form. And then for the eye candy, so that's a little bit of advanced usage to make these like green and yellow dots based on certain criteria. We use Lua, which is a lightweight programming language for templates. Again, here there is another lunchtime talk, which you can see, which covers the technical details of these directories in more detail. Okay. Last but not least, I want to stretch the wiki a little bit. And now this is one of the areas where I think maybe other parts of the software, like other software, can cover that a little bit better depending on the use case. And that is an incident register. So incidents in the sense of ITSM may be two different things. It can be something like a bug or a system outage. So that's high frequent incidents, and they have a lifetime, and then at some point they're over. And then, you know, ticket closed, everything's good. And I guess for that process, a ticket system, of course, is the way to go. I mean, ticket systems are specifically designed to follow up, to manage these kind of events. But then there is another thing, which is incidents on a level where you actually add knowledge on top of it. I'm gonna give you an example. So this incident here is, again, is like an actual use case. That is an incident that happened in our cloud. And it was, you know, some error message. As you can see, instance gateway timeout. I don't even remember what it was. But that error message, we got that, and it took us quite a while to figure out what it is and how we can fix it. So in this scenario, it's not opening a ticket and then, you know, go to the ticket, close it, and after half a year, forget about it. But it was really important to document what happened in a structured way, so we can access it in form of a knowledge base later on. So that way, that is one of the instances where I think a wiki can help, because we are naturally a knowledge base. So in this concrete case, what we actually did was the actual solution and the operational solution of that was done in a ticket system. But we took a note here of that incident in our incident register, because we said that's such a notable incident, we need to basically maintain some knowledge and keep it for future uses here. How can you do that? It's very simple. Again, maybe it by now it even looks familiar. Let's just go to the real example here. So we have a list of all incidents. You can see here that we have an inbox. Maybe if you paid attention to my talk, you've seen that before. So we can just create a new one, and whatever that is, connection lost. Okay, and then we'll create that, and we can add some metadata, and then in the end, basically document that incident as such. If we do so, let's just go back. They will show up here in this list. And as you can see here, there is some sort of lightweight tracking. So we can say, is it still ongoing? Is it closed? That is sometimes useful when, when we're talking about longer going tasks, which, you know, we don't want to span over in the ticket system, or if you want to do audit reports on these incidents at a later point. So here, as I said, we're stretching the limits of the wiki a little bit here, and I found it useful to use that in specific cases, mostly when documentation is involved or when it is like a very specific thing, but it is a good connect to ticket systems and to other parts of the system. Okay, so hello. What kind of technologies did we use? Oh, yeah, and what you can also see is I can not only use like lists here, but I can also use different ways of representing the data. So, for example, I took a timeline, and I can see like is there any time of the year where we have more incidents than another time. So whatever you could do here. What we used here is templates. So there's a risk management template, which we also use for the incidents, and we use semantic attributes and queries again. Okay, to maybe wrap this up real quick. And let me just go back to that part. So ITSM is a huge set of practices, of structured practices to achieve the goal of making of producing reliant services for the IT, so other entities, other people can rely on these services. It consists of a lot of different practices which need to be documented and which need to be executed. In practice, depending on your organization's size, you will more or less implement a subset of these, and you will implement some of them in like more detail, and some of them you will implement at a, say, a higher level or a more superficial level. There's specialized software for some of those practices, and there's like more general software. I think in a combination of a ticket system and a wiki, you can cover basically most of it. And I hope I have shown that the wiki can cover the management part of a lot of those aspects by using elements like handbooks, like registers, like catalogs, and of course, like knowledge management.